So Kamala Harris's VP pick is in, and it's Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota. And, we have been doing political profiles on many of the politicians that have been vying for the presidential spot. Well, now that we officially have two VPs, we're going to go ahead and do those individuals as well, so that we can give you another snapshot of who the 2IC, the second in command, is going to possibly be for the United States of America. Now, as you know, I'm a retired Army officer, and I was active duty in the infantry with multiple year-long combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as some year-long tours in South Korea, North Africa, and Kuwait. So almost about 5 years of overseas tours when you add them all up. Kimberly asked me what my thoughts were on Tim Walz's military service controversy from last week. And if you want to know my view on the matter, stay tuned to the end. And if you want to skip ahead, we have chapters in the description. But to quote one of my brigade commanders when I was a company commander, use precise words precisely.
Well, Kamala Harris has Tim Walz on her campaign website, but there's not a single policy listed.
Yeah, we're scrolling that right now.
It's pretty atypical of a politician running for office. Nope, it's all about donate, 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 and even volunteering. But they do have some biographies full of fluff.
Yeah, so we'll filter this out because it was multiple paragraphs on Walz when he's been added to Kamala Harris's website. So he served 24 years in the Minnesota National Guard, retiring as a master sergeant. Again, more on that later. He was a teacher and a football coach, and he was a congressman in Minnesota from the 1st Congressional District, and he's currently the sitting governor of Minnesota.
Now, we're going to look at the records here, and we'll go from the most recent, his current governorship, to his far past, because character often remains the same.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So let's look at his governorship. First, I'd like to point out that people vote with their feet, as Ron DeSantis often says. Ron DeSantis claims that he has met a lot of constituents with Minnesota accents, and I'm not even going to try to mimic it.
No, that would be bad for both of us.
I'm not nice enough either. He started as governor in 2018. Minnesota's population has grown 2.3%. Now, that is better than a place famous for losing its population with its current governor of California and its reek of sulfur governor. Since 2018, California has lost 0.79% of its population, so almost 1%. So, Minnesota growing by 2.3% sounds good.
Yeah,
right?
I guess so.
Well, Texas since 2018 has grown by 8.3%, even outpacing Florida's rate of 8.23%.
God bless Texas.
Yep. Well, per U.S. News and World Report, before COVID, Minnesota's economy matched the U.S. growth rate. Since late 2020, the state's growth lags the U.S.'s by 5.5 percentage points, and non-farm payrolls have grown by 0.5% since Walz became governor versus 5.8% for the U.S.
Yeah, and there's some heavy hitters that are there. 3M, I believe, is based there. So, are they losing money? Who knows? But there are some heavy hitters there. So I was surprised when you researched that data and we saw that number.
Well, policies affect business.
That's exactly right.
Well, per the Washington Times, despite taking office in 2019 with a $17.6 billion state budget surplus, Mr. Walz has slapped Minnesotans with a series of tax increases, and businesses usually don't like extra taxes.
Nope.
So that surplus has been spent, and Mr. Walz has imposed a 0.7% payroll tax on employers.
Okay.
Half of which may be passed on to employees, making Minnesota among a handful of states with a payroll tax.
Okay.
A 50-cent tax on more than $100 in retail deliveries except for food.
Okay.
So it's second only to Colorado in offering a retail delivery tax.
Now, is that specifically, is that like affecting like Amazon and eBay and things like that?
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's pay even more. Why don't we?
Well, as a congressman, per GovTrack US, he has the second most absentee percentage in votes compared to all other representatives, missing 32.6% of his votes while a congressman. That's a third. That's a third of all of the votes that he was representing the 1st Congressional District that he just said, I don't feel like showing up.
And he wants to be second in command. If I were doing a job interview and I called up a previous employer to, do some research on a job candidate, and I found out they missed a third of their work,
right,
I would not be hiring them.
Yeah. I mean, this number is only acceptable in Major League Baseball, where that would be an amazing batting percentage. But still, this is not baseball. This is government, and he is supposed to be representing his constituents, and he's only doing it 2/3 of the time. So he's not really working for you, and that's just kind of embarrassing. Now, if you compare the work ethic and the votes missed, Kamala Harris is not much better than he was when she was a sitting senator. She missed 30.2% of her votes.
I would not be hiring her either. Now, if those percentages were for like predicting Houston weather, I would say that's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So baseball and weather. Okay. All right. I'll take that. But let's put it in an example. Ted Cruz, who is the junior senator from Texas, only missed 9.6% of his available votes for his entire time in Congress as a senator. And so if you look at this heat map / bubble chart, you can see how the voting record on average for Congressman Tim Walz at the time you can see that you have the very far left is in that blue purple, and then the very far right is in the red, and you can see kind of this heat map of where people were voting on the majority of
on
their time.
GovTrack's website.
On GovTrack's website. Now, he's showing as kind of right in the middle. But my question, and I asked you about this, my question was that what his available votes were, and anything that he missed was counted as a zero or an average, so it wouldn't have been a positive number or a negative number, which would move him left or right on the chart. It kind of kept him in the middle. So did he kind of cheat the system by not voting or showing up for votes, and then have his votes averaged out? So if you take a look at the top of the ticket for Kamala and Walz, you have her all the way over.
She's all the way over. So even
left.
if you want to say, oh, well, she missed a lot too, it's still not going to help her very much.
I mean, she is all the way over. I think she's trying to break the barrier. It's people are talking about glass ceilings. It's a sideways wall that she's trying to.
She's
burst
knocking
through.
on it hard.
Yeah. So we just wanted to show you those kind of statistics, but he's not really showing up to work, and hopefully we can ask him why he hasn't done a single interview either, as well as the top of the ticket.
Maybe when he was letting Minneapolis burn from the BLM riots, that was a day he missed work.
Yeah, it could be.
Of course, his wife was very busy sniffing some tires. So,
yeah, on our community tab and on our Twitter feed, I try and be a little Babylon Bee-esque with some cartoons that I try and do, and I think I'm getting a little better. But still, this one totally, when she had her quote of leaving the windows open so that she could smell the burning rubber and the burning tires and live in the moment, it totally made me think of the surfing scene in Apocalypse Now, with Robert Duvall playing this colonel who is just obsessed with surfing, and he goes on this soliloquy of how he loves the smell of napalm in the morning, and he goes, that gasoline smell, that smell smells like victory. And so I did a little thing where she's kind of mimicking the same thing, but is using the burning rubber tires as her.
If you're a governor, and even the governor's wife, I mean, you're supposed to love your state and the city in which you live, and the last thing you want is for it to burn. Like, do you want your house to burn? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it makes zero sense. I mean, I can't think that way.
We just needed a photograph of her with a fiddle, and the whole scene would have been
Nero watching Rome burn.
Yeah, exactly.
So, also on his record, he has a history of being a teacher.
Okay.
I believe it was social studies. Well, per Politico, a former student of his by the name Hurd recalled that Walz did not overload students with homework, which anytime I hear that, I'm like, okay, they're a little soft. He was not really a homework guy, but challenged them in other ways.
Okay.
He made them wrestle with issues like the Cambodian genocide and a number of genocides, and also how the French government treated its Muslim citizens. And I'm like, when I was in social studies, we talked about our government, and how it was structured and certain history. And occasionally we relate it to current events, but genocide was more of an SAT word for me.
Okay.
But yeah, Walz has been known to say, I lived in China, and as I've said, I've been there about 30 times. I don't like any place enough to go 30 times. That's kind of weird. Better have some business there. He says, I don't fall into the category that China necessarily needs to be an adversarial relationship. I totally disagree, and I think we need to stand firm on what they're doing in the South China Sea, but there may be areas of cooperation we can work on, he said in an interview with AgriPulse Communications. I disagree with all that. But okay. I mean, they are adversarial. They're trying to undermine us.
So, I mean, you have there's a difference between competition, and everybody said that competition is good. It's good for consumers, but they don't play by the rules. They are well known to do industrial espionage, stealing proprietary information and reverse engineering things, and what are you going to do? Sue them in a court of law in a communist country?
Good luck with that.
You're not going to win, and so then you have freedom of navigation that they're interrupting in the South China Sea. They're claiming almost all of it. You have a lot of our allies that are in the area that are being their neck is just being stomped on. You have the Philippines that the Chinese Coast Guard has actually killed some Philippine sailors and injured them, as well as destroying equipment and things like that. So it's definitely an adversarial relationship, and China has stated that they want to remove the United States hegemony from existence. They don't want the United States to have that power, and they want to take it over. And their goal is to be dominant all over the world by 2050, and they're definitely on the way to do that. If we have representatives like this that are praising China.
Yeah, I mean, there's the saying, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. It sounds like he wants to be bosom buddies.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to his being a teacher. Walz taught the same year as the Tiananmen Square crackdown by the communist regime against pro-democracy protesters. He later started a company to organize trips to China, so that's why he's been so many times. But why does he want to take people there so much? Anyway, and he has, in his remarks, that he's visited the country so many times, conducting summer education trips to China. The New York Post reported that he said, after his initial travel there, no matter how long I live, I will never be treated that well again.
Okay.
Maybe some bribery? I don't know.
Apparently the U.S. sucks, apparently, to him.
Yeah, it's suspicious for sure. To boot, he honeymooned in China. Honeymoon.
Right.
Bermuda, no, not good. Fiji, no, not good. Let's go to China, honey.
Right.
And he intentionally had his wedding date on the 5-year anniversary of the Tiananmen Square. And he claims that it's because wanted to remember.
Okay.
I'm sure there are better ways to remember your wedding anniversary.
Right.
Like my favorite football team went to the Super Bowl on this date or something. I don't know anything.
I don't know either. But, when, you think about it, some of the things that China does, and this is one of those things that make you go, But one of the things that he did during COVID is the same thing that China does, and effectively it was the social credit score. And so during COVID lockdowns, he had hotlines set up so that neighbors could rat out other neighbors for violating COVID. And so that is literally the exact same thing that China is doing with their social credit scores, where if you're not towing the communist line perfectly, your neighbors can rat you out and they can up their score and lower your score. And I think that affects, being able to get some commercial goods and government jobs and things like that. So he borrowed a page right out of China's playbook, literally, and had this social credit score rat squad out searching for COVID-19, people that were violating his draconian lockdowns that he had. In fact, I want to say there was a grandmother that had a restaurant and bar that just recently had an article and in an interview on Fox News warning the rest of the United States who Tim Walz is. And, she was just absolutely shut down. But she saw that, big box stores and liquor stores that sell alcohol, obviously they're liquor stores, and she's a bar that obviously sells alcohol. She was not allowed to be open, and the liquor stores were allowed to be open and sell things. And so, he cherry picked on which businesses that he was going to do, and she finally she had to open. She was going bankrupt. She had to open, and they arrested her and jailed her for 90 days. She missed her wedding anniversary. She missed Christmas with her family, all because she dared to violate Tim Walz's draconian COVID measures. And, if you are looking to be a freedom-loving citizen of the United States, this is not your guy.
No, because if they try to do another COVID, what kind of links is he going to propose? And
yeah, I would just say that he is as far left now as Kamala is, and with Kamala choosing somebody, this actually really kind of surprised me. I thought she was going to go kind of the safe route and do a middle of the road, but this is straight up a two-tier progressive ticket, like all the way over to the far left.
Well, I think she's going to want someone to back her policies, and so, when she's out there trying to make herself sound different from Biden's policies, no, you're not going to pick someone who would choose different policies from you, because if you don't want to be arguing with someone, you're second in command, and who's going to disrupt your legacy if for some reason you're not able to execute, your presidency.
Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've always said that typically, the VP and Vance has said this as well. Typically the VP pick does not matter. It has negligible impact on the election. However, typically what you see is you want to use the VP to fill a capability gap that you have, whether it's with this particular voting block or that particular voting block, a state that you might need to pick up. But Minnesota's been reliably blue, so that it wasn't for that.
Yeah, exactly. With the party of the DEI, like they don't care about differences of thought. So what's the difference she's looking to pick up? White men.
Yeah, I mean, and
for once you matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she had that, and I think he was the headline speaker, white dudes for Kamala, and so he was the headline speaker because he's a white dude. And one of the interesting takeaways from there was the socialism, in another word, is just neighborliness. I mean, one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness, and I would say that should beyond frighten you. It should frighten you to no end, because he is straight up saying that socialism is good, and that is his policy, and that is what he is going to try and drive down our throats. And Kamala, being as far left as she is, that will be a touchstone. Now, I just we talk about AOC and Bernie Sanders, and they talk about democratic socialism. As we have seen in Venezuela, socialism is democratic once.
Yes, you can vote it in. You cannot vote it out.
You can't. Once you are vote for democratic socialism, that's the last vote that you get that matters, because you can't vote yourself out of it. They just the information will be controlled, the economics will be controlled, the goods and services will be controlled. That you get one vote, and once you use that to your detriment, there is no going back.
Yeah, and if you think people are just being hyperbolic, like, oh, it's not that bad, we read about it in history class or whatnot in schools. I mean, really, do you know that much history from our public education system? I mean, Karl Marx was a blip on my history books, and now I'm like, whoa, we should have talked about this way more.
Right.
But
I can promise they're talking about it now.
Look up people that have immigrated here from communist places, and they say, no, don't do this. Listen to them. There's a reason why they're saying it.
There's a reason why they escaped that country in order to come here.
Yeah.
Honestly. All right. Here's the part that some of you may have been waiting for. We've gotten comments, direct messages to us to get my opinion on this. Kimberly asked my opinion on it as well. It was actually before some of the information came out, and I had told Kimberly what I thought had happened, and it turned out it's exactly what happened. So we're going to go into the controversy surrounding Tim Walz's military service. Now, I just want to point out he enlisted when he was 17 years old. He served 20 years. Now, let me get to the rest of the time. He served 20 years in the Minnesota National Guard before retiring. He had his paperwork turned in to retire, and then 9/11 happened. 9/11 happened. And so he decided to not retire and to re-enlist for 6 years. Re-enlist for 6 years. There is a great deal of honor to be said for that, to after 9/11 happened, to re-enlist after you had decided to retire. Okay, Great props. Can't take anything away from the man for doing that. Now, he was a master sergeant, and that is an E8, enlisted 8. And the E8 is the pay grade. Oftentimes, it's kind of disrespectful to call people by their pay grade. It happens. Hey, there's an E5 over there, which is a sergeant, or hey, there's a E7 over there.
Well, most civilians don't know all the titles, and
Sure.
so people know what numbers are.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. So, but anyway, he was an E8, which is the second highest rank that an enlisted soldier can achieve. And that is the rank of master sergeant, and that's what he was retiring as. So he re-enlisted, and he re-enlisted for 6 years. Now, in doing so, he had the ability, or had the opportunity, to become a command sergeant major, and in a artillery battalion. And so I've heard a lot of people talking about that. Oh, he was the commander. Let's make sure that we're using those precise words precisely. The commander of a battalion is an officer, a lieutenant colonel. The command sergeant major is the senior enlisted advisor to that battalion commander. And if you get to a brigade command sergeant major, you're the senior enlisted advisor to the brigade commander, who is a full bird colonel. If you're a division command sergeant major, you're the senior enlisted advisor to a division commander, which is a 2-star general, and so on. So oftentimes the position of command sergeant major, one, you're the senior enlisted advisor to the commander, but two, you're there for troop morale. That's really kind of your job. You don't really have too many duties and responsibilities. I mean, you have the professional development of first sergeants, company first sergeants, and possibly even sergeant first classes and things like that. But on the by and by, you're responsible to be the senior enlisted advisor, and troop morale is really kind of what it is. And so now you're helping out on as that advisor to the commander on the type of skill level tasks that soldiers need to go through, or skill level tasks that squad leaders need to go through, etc. So they have input, right? But again, that's an advisor role. So I've heard erroneous reports that he was the commander of troops, and that is not what a command sergeant major is. They are in charge of the battalion, as so far much as being that advisor to the actual commander of the battalion, who is the actual owner of the battalion, right? So he got a conditional promotion, and I use the term frocking. So he was frocked from master sergeant to command sergeant major. Command sergeant major, again, is an E9. So it is a promotion. It's a pay raise and things like that. But it was conditional. So he had not gone to the Sergeant Major's Academy that's out in Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And it's a 2-year school. It's a 2-year school, and you need to do a combination of in-person training or attendance at the school, as well as correspondence courses or e-learning. Although I bet e-learning wasn't as big. So, but you had a box of books, and you had correspondence stuff that you had to do and submit in. So the thing about the school and having that promotion is that you need to serve 2 years in the position after graduating the school in order to maintain that rank. Okay, so that's key. It's not that it's you have to go through the 2-year school and it's happening simultaneously. 2-year school, you've served 2 years, and now you get to keep. It's 2 years after you graduate. So it's 2 years through the school, and then you graduate, and then 2 more years that you have to serve in order to maintain that rank and be that rank on a permanent basis. And he did not. He did not do that. He made it retired in 2005, and so he did not do the 2 years in rank, nor did he finish the course. He didn't finish the course either. So there's a double no-go right there. So he didn't finish the course, and he didn't maintain his 2 years after graduating the course, again, which is a moot point because he didn't finish it. So when he retired as a master sergeant because he got demoted. And that sounds harsh, but he had the rank. They took it away because he didn't earn it. And he retired as a master sergeant in E8. Still a very, very honorable service. He got an honorable discharge, and it's a great accomplishment to retire as an E8. That's still a very high rank.
Yes, but the problem is not only did he lie about it, but also people used the incorrect title, and he did not correct them.
Right.
Now, I asked you, is this a case of stolen valor? Now, it's not as obvious as like someone, if I walked in with your military uniform
right.
and tried to use it to some sort of financial gain, that would be a very obvious instance. But I think you said it has to be used for some sort of financial purposes,
right.
correct? Well, he ran for office with the incorrect title and like on his website and various places and didn't correct people. I mean, I don't know how much of a tipping point it was for him to get voted into Congress, to be voted in as a governor with a higher rank.
Right. So, you know,
I mean, it could be argued. I mean, it'll never go anywhere, but still, it could be argued.
An argument can be, you can argue anything. Anybody can argue anything that they want. I honestly wouldn't put it. It would have to be looking at UCMJ and looking at the federal law, you know, to have it be stolen valor that he used an incorrect and imprecise, rank in order to benefit him in some monetary way. An argument could be made that congressmen get paid a salary, right? And so he used a incorrect title, a title that he did not maintain. He did not retire as a command sergeant major, but he utilized that in order to get a congressional seat. Now, could an argument be made that by using that he was able to solicit additional campaign dollars, and therefore that is a financial?
Yeah,
so
I think he bragged that he was the highest person that served in Congress.
Okay, the highest enlisted.
Ranking.
Men in Congress.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, that's I don't even know if there were any other E8s. It might have been true even if he was an E8, but still he was not an E9 at the time of his retirement. Now let's talk about the years of service. So he signed up again for. So we've kind of identified the rank issue. He did not retire as a command sergeant major. His websites are all being sanitized. The Kamala Harris, Tim Walz campaign website has been changed. It now says he had achieved the rank of command sergeant major rather than retired as a command sergeant major. Again, we're splitting hairs here, and again, that use precise words precisely. So the end result, he is a retired master sergeant in E8. Now let's talk about the what's surrounding the terms of his reenlistment. So he reenlisted for 6 years, but he retired. He only did 4 of them, right? He only did
how do you get away with that?
Yeah. So we see open letters being written by military spouses, and so obviously they didn't serve in the military, but military spouses are writing open letters and opinion columns and saying that if somebody is questioning what had happened, then you're a bad human being and you're not really for veterans. The thing is being precise about all of this stuff. So in looking at his retirement, he retired. He did not finish his 6 years in reenlistment. He retired 4 years into his 6 years. Okay, so how did he do that? And you asked me, and I said it's because it's the National Guard, and it was part of the Good Old Boy Network, and he somehow did the Good Old Boy Network. Now, his former brigade command sergeant major. The former brigade command sergeant major. So you have the battalion, and then they have the brigade, and then the division, and then you have the command sergeant major of the Minnesota National Guard. So that literally is the highest enlisted soldier in the state of Minnesota as it pertains to the National Guard, right? So the brigade command sergeant major, who should have received the retirement paperwork, is on record saying that Command Sergeant Major then Walz did not turn in or did not inform him of his intent to retire. Okay, so he immediately went around his chain of command. The battalion commander didn't know about it either. The Command Sergeant Major of the Minnesota National Guard is also on record as saying that he did not get a copy of the paperwork or know anything about the paperwork. So Tim Walz, he did in the Army, we say it in jest, he did a drug deal somewhere to get his enlistment scratched. Now, that's how that happened. I mean, it was just the good old boy network, and sometimes that happens in the National Guard, but it just happens that way. Now, let's talk about deployments. Because there was a significant portion of last week where people were saying that he abandoned his unit. And a lot of the news networks are quick to point out that he retired in March of 2005, but the unit did not receive orders to deploy until July of 2005, after he retired. And so people are like, this is a closed case. He couldn't have known that his unit was deploying. And they got the orders afterwards. Let me be clear. I'm going to put up an example graphic that I've made, and it is an example of a deployment slate of what units are going to which campaign, whether it's Operation Iraqi Freedom, OIF, or Operation Enduring Freedom, OEF, to support the global war on terror. So it is not that the U.S. military has a big old dartboard, and a month prior to deploying units, they take a big dart and they throw it at that dartboard and go, it looks like it's the Minnesota National Guard that's
and
deploying.
Then the soldiers find out the next day they're going.
And then the soldiers find out. That stuff is done 2 to 3 years in advance. 2 to 3 years in advance. The deployment slate is, and it has all the units. It has the major brigades and battalions and divisions. At the time, the Army was experimenting with, instead of having a division have its organic units, it was going to have this UEX, this universal command structure, where a division headquarters would deploy as a command node, and then other units would plug and play underneath it. So it wasn't the traditional, the 82nd Airborne is deploying and it's taking 1st, 2nd, and 3rd brigades of the 82nd Airborne and all their enablers all at the same time. So the 82nd Division headquarters would go, and then there would be a hodgepodge of different brigade combat teams and battalion separates and things like that would be attached to them. And the Army did that in order to increase flexibility, right? So make things plug and play. So anyway, the command slate is out, and this is unfortunate for Tim Walz, but the brigade command sergeant major and the Minnesota command sergeant major said that Tim Walz, then a battalion command sergeant major, attended meetings. Now, as a battalion command sergeant major, he was sitting along the wall. He was not at any of the tables, more than likely, because it was all, a lot of bigwigs. But he was sitting along the wall, and not saying anything, but that he was in attendance when the slates were all being discussed and talked about for the Minnesota National Guard. Now, he didn't have any input. While an E9 is an amazing rank, being a battalion E9 and talking about the entire Minnesota National Guard, it's stay over there and you'll be able to participate, but you don't need to be jumping in and saying stuff. But the thing is he would be seeing the slide decks. Yep. He would be seeing what is about to come down the pipeline, and his superiors have confirmed that he was present for those briefings, and so he knew it was coming down the pipeline. Again, that's knowing that it's coming down the pipeline is different than the unit actually receiving its orders. The unit knows it's going to deploy before you receive orders. The reason that you receive orders is because the National Guardsmen would need to be activated. So they would come on active duty in order to deploy, and they need orders to make sure all of that happens, right? So they and there needs to be a specified date that deployment is going to last. A lot of times, sometimes it's open-ended, but it needs to have a start date and an end date, and you can have orders extended and things like that. So, but anyway, the unit knew it was going. They hadn't received orders, because when they get orders, then all of a sudden they start, getting ready to go on to active duty. And then they accumulate active duty time and things like that. So, but anyway, when push comes to shove, he knew his unit was going to Iraq. He knew that was going to happen. So the argument that he retired and then the unit got orders and so he wouldn't have known anything about it is just disingenuous. And I would not say disingenuous. It's the media. They don't know. They don't know what they're talking about.
They don't know better.
Right?
Yeah.
They just don't know what they're talking about. They're just doing math, and they don't understand how it actually works. And so that's one of the reasons why veterans are speaking up, because we do know how it works. Okay, so we have the rank, we have the enlistment, we have the whether or not he knew his unit was going to deploy, and whether or not he abandoned his unit. So the kind of the nail in the coffin of that is that he informed his brigade command sergeant major that he would deploy with his troops to Iraq. All right. That's according to the brigade command sergeant major. So he knew he was deploying, and he said that I am going to deploy with my troops. And just so everybody understands, there's only one in a battalion. There's only one in a brigade command sergeant major, right? And so people want those positions. They want to get there. So Tim Walz was occupying a position that somebody would have wanted. Another E8 would have wanted to be the command sergeant major. I mean, it's a professional development. And so he kind of robbed, that slot. He occupied that slot without any intention of deploying or apparently finishing the command sergeant major academy, because he was going to run for Congress. Right, and so that's really kind of what that happened. Now, the final controversy is his usage or implication that he deployed to combat. And so we're going to listen to this clip, and we're going to see, what precise words he was using precisely. Okay, so we're going to listen to this thing.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army, and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at. We won't.
We can make sure those weapons of war that I carried in war will never be used. Right? So this is what people are saying, that he's implying that he had been to combat. I mean, well, not implying. He's saying I carried him in war. He's saying I deployed to combat. Now, there is, so there are news reports that have said that he misspoke. And it's the surrogates and campaign staff for the Harris-Walz campaign have been going on news stations and saying, look, he misspoke. They dug up, this is what they're trying to do. They dug up something from years ago, and they're using it, kind of like J.D. Vance's cat comments or cat lady comments and stuff like that. So, pot, I'd like to introduce you to Kettle. But still, they say he misspoke. Okay, but the thing is he has not, this is the biggest heartburn I have the whole thing. He personally has not come out and addressed the issue. He has not come out and addressed he has not gone on CNN. He has not had a public address where he just goes and admits to all of this stuff that he has been benefiting from.
Kamala Harris really did pick a like-minded spirit animal.
Yeah, exactly. So he has not, he has just hunkered down, and he's had the media defending him. He's had the campaign staff defending him and changing websites to reflect that he didn't retire as a command sergeant major. He's had spouses of military veterans and liberal military veteran organizations write open letters and everything. They're all Democrats, so of course they want to do this. But the point is what he needs to do is he needs to get out and say, look, I made a mistake. I embellished. I misspoke. I didn't use precise words. So let's just, for an example, as an infantry officer, it is an Army infantry officer. It is a big deal for infantry officers to go to Ranger School. Mm-hmm. It is a huge deal. And if you do not have a Ranger tab, you have to be 5 times better than any other infantry officer that has a Ranger tab just to be considered like average. I mean, it is what it is. So I never graduated from Ranger School, but let's do a quick word thing. Have you ever been to Ranger School? Yes, I went to Ranger School.
Okay.
I would say that if I left it at that, that is an implication.
People would assume
that I graduated the course.
That you finished.
That I graduated the course.
I took a private flying lesson. I am not a certified pilot.
Well, those are a lot of words. But to say I went to Ranger School. Did you go to Ranger School? Yes, I went to Ranger School. I would say that is a lie by omission. Mm-hmm. Right? That is a lie by omission. I went to Ranger School and I did not graduate. That is being truthful and being honorable, and it's easy to just say, "Yeah, I went to Ranger School. Of course I did." But that's not what happened here. He is letting these ankle biters for him become a big deal because 1, he's not addressing it, and 2, when other people repeat it, he doesn't correct them.
Yep. Well, I mean, why would he address the public when the media is doing all the work for him?
Exactly.
I mean, and if they misstate something, it's on them, not on him.
Right. No, exactly. And like I said, he's had all these surrogates. So again, these liberal veterans organizations that have gotten wives of soldiers and veterans to talk about it. There's a column in USA Today, an opinion piece by a wife of a soldier that says how dare he? Well, the thing is he's running for the number 2 spot to be the vice president of the United States. Of course, you need to challenge it. Of course you need to challenge it.
People are going to do their research, and it needs to be accurate, not some rewritten history that Google Gemini probably produced.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I hope that from a veteran, I am not disparaging Tim Walz's service. To serve in the military for 25 years is honorable, and he has a honorable discharge. He just did not retire at the rank that he told people retired at, and he did not deploy to combat that he made people imply that he had gone to combat. So that's just, it is what it is, and hopefully that puts it to bed. He needs to get out and talk to the American people and own it, and that would be the honorable thing to do.
Yeah,
so that's a veteran's opinion on it,
and probably especially before he debates J.D. Vance, which I hope happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is at least one VP debate, and I hope that happens as well. But this is going to conclude our deep dive into Governor Tim Walz. We'll do one obviously for Senator J.D. Vance as well. But thank you so much for tuning in to Azimuth Podcast. If you please like and subscribe and share this video, we'd really appreciate it. It helps out the channel so much, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's free. It's free to do that, but it really does help out with the various algorithms that push our content out there. So again, thank you so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast. Please stay tuned after these messages.
Why should we care about news overseas?
That's a good question.
Welcome to Azimuth Podcast. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and with me is Barrett McNabb. So recently, little girls ages 6 to 9 were killed and more than a dozen injured at a Taylor Swift event recently in the UK. And almost immediately after the attack, social media posts speculated that the suspect was an asylum seeker who arrived in the UK on a boat. In fact, as the BBC and other media outlets reported, the suspect was born in Wales to Rwandan parents. Riots and protesters broke out throughout the UK. Police believe that the violence has broken out due to their own political purposes. Well, London's Metropolitan Police Chief warned that officials will not only be cracking down on British citizens for commentary on the riots in the UK, but on American citizens as well. You can't enforce regular law, but you're going to come over across the pond.
Wow. That's crazy. So let's go ahead and take a look at this clip.
We will throw the full force of the law at people. And whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you.
Talk to me about that, because we have seen some high-profile figures whipping up the hatred. You talked about it in there with the officers, in fact, about this being added to by online commentary. I mean, I'm even thinking of the likes of Elon Musk getting involved. What are you considering when it comes to dealing with people who are whipping up this kind of behaviour from behind a keyboard and maybe in a different country?
Being a keyboard warrior does not make you safe from the law. You can be guilty of offences of incitement, of stirring up racial hatred. There are numerous terrorist offences regarding the sort of publishing of material. All of those offences are in play if people are provoking hatred and violence on the streets, and we will come after those individuals just as we will physically confront on the streets the thugs and the yobs who are causing the problems for communities.
That is crazy. That is crazy. I mean, we fought a revolutionary war so that we wouldn't have to put up with your shit, England.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that we have a Bill of Rights here that gives us the freedom of speech that you do not have in the UK. If you're a UK citizen, or subject, actually. If you're a UK subject, because of the monarchy, you do not have freedom of speech, and you have never had freedom of speech.
Or a right to be upset that 3 little girls died, got stabbed. We're not going to keep you safe from the stabby little, 17-year-old, but we're going to protect you from the mean hatred online.
Yeah, and the reference that Elon Musk has been saying, responded to the video of the comments. Is this Britain or the Soviet Union? And he is not far off. That is just crazy. If you recall, we did a video about a woman that was arrested for praying in front of an abortion clinic. It was outside of whatever radius that they couldn't do anything in. It was outside that, but she just had her head bowed, and she was arrested for what they perceived were her thoughts. And that she was violating, their speech laws by praying. And was she praying? Was she playing tic-tac-toe in her head? Doesn't matter.
Well,
I
think they claimed she may have been blocking access or some nonsense.
That's just crazy. But we have another clip, and it's from Nick Freitas, and he is my spirit animal. I love this guy. I know Kimberly loves this guy as well.
Excellent Instagram follower.
Yeah, follow on Instagram, follow him on YouTube Shorts and things like that. If you don't know this individual, he is a former Green Beret, former Special Forces, U.S. Army, and now he is a sitting
Virginia councilman.
Councilman or congressman?
Council.
Council? Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, it's a big building with people, and he gets in arguments all the time. So anyway, we're going to go play this clip, and it is absolutely amazing.
Did you guys see this? Yeah. Looks like the British government is going to extradite Americans for saying things on social media they don't like. So essentially, the British government is going to finally crack down on foreigners breaking their laws. Not in their own country. No, they're going to try to come over to the U.S. and do it. And I got to tell you, as a Virginian, we're stoked, right? Because all of our heroes in Virginia became heroes by fighting the British. So the fact that the Redcoats are coming, this is a huge opportunity for us. We are really excited. We even put one of your kings on our flag. Yeah, he's right here. Anyway, can't wait to see you. And if you decide to bring Hessians again, tell them we got a Christmas present for them. They'll know what we're talking about.
That is hysterical. And anyway, hysterical. It's the Redcoats are coming, and we're ready for you. I'm not a keyboard warrior. I'm an actual warrior, and there you go. Gauntlet's been thrown, Mr. UK policeman. We fought a war so that we didn't have to put up with your bullshit, and we're still going strong.
Yep.
I mean, it just truly is. And so, Nick, thank you for this. I enjoy your stuff, all the time. But still, if people aren't upset about murdered children, then
what are we doing? What are we? What do we stand for? I mean, come on.
Yeah, and extraditing Americans, I just don't see that would be legal. Now, here's what I guess I could see it, is if you were an expat that lived in England and your IP address is located in the UK and you post something in violation of their laws with your IP address being in the UK, you might have broken their law, right? I can see that. But when your IP address is outside of that location and that jurisdiction in the United States, we have freedom of speech. We have freedom. We're not breaking a law here. And so for them to say that they're going to extradite for breaking a law, it's not physically located. I mean, I just don't understand how this would be legal. It makes the guy sound stupid, but would Harris send us over if she wins?
I don't know. If you also said something against her, I fully believe she might, or her running mate for that matter. They've both had comments to make me think so. I mean, Kamala Harris and her positions for the 2020 campaign,
right.
She was pro-censorship of social media. She told Mark Zuckerberg in 2019, this is not a matter of free speech. This is a matter of holding corporate America and big tech companies responsible and accountable for what they are facilitating, referencing what's said on social media.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Is it, these town squares, and there's been Supreme Court cases and things like that, and I think one of the Supreme Court justices got a little carried away and turned everybody off, but still in aggressive in their position of big tech and free speech and the ability for big tech to censor free speech, namely conservative voices, and promote liberal voices. But this is for her to say that it's the responsibility of these electronic digital town squares to censor speech, and I can't agree. I just don't agree with this. Really big tech shouldn't be jumping in. They're not editors of a newspaper or a magazine. They're not generating the content themselves. They're just cherry picking who gets to say what they want on the internet. And that's one of the things I think that Elon Musk, everybody is so mad at him because he is actually letting free speach reign.
Yep.
I mean, that's just straight up what he is. I mean, he is. People are telling the truth, and he's letting them tell their truth. Now, obviously, he's doing it at great expense to himself. He purchased Twitter, now X, and he's lost advertisers. And there's been organizations that have campaigned to prevent him to get advertisers. I think there was some nonprofit advertising company that was getting companies like Mars and other big Nike, other big companies to boycott Twitter, and he sued them out of existence. He filed a lawsuit, and they said, we quit. We don't have any money, so we're closing down. So I mean, that's when you have that kind of deep pockets, you can, people that are harassing you is like a little chihuahua trying to nip at the heels of a giant bull. But still, they were trying to influence his company to suppress free speech, and he said, I'm not doing that.
Right. Well, Kamala Harris's VP pick is not any different either. Tim Walz went on MSNBC to support censoring disinformation,
right,
and declared there's no guarantee of free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy. Well, you know what? Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes you're not going to like it.
Right.
Like, I am not a professional figure skater. Sorry, sucks. Let's move on. People need to hear the truth.
Right. I agree.
And just because you don't like it means it's misinformation. And when did this Orwellian term come from, misinformation? It's like, it's either fact or fiction.
Well, I can tell you exactly where it came from. It came from Donald Trump running for president in 2016.
They invented it.
I think that's when
they didn't want to They didn't want to say he was lying, but no, we don't like it.
Right. Well, I mean, but it's not that even if he was telling the truth, in order to rebrand the truth into what you want it to be, calling it misinformation or disinformation. I mean, even the Obama administration attempted to create a Bureau of Disinformation. And it was that silly woman who did the Mary Poppins song about disinformation. I'm not going to play it because it's stupid. But she quickly was destroyed, and her position was eliminated. But thank God. But again, so you have a human being that's appointed by a liberal administration who gets to cherry pick and choose what you get to hear, because she gets to decide what's information and what's misinformation. And that, to me, is scary, and it should scare you as well.
Power.
That's
no
too much
one,
power.
no one should hold that much power.
Exactly.
I mean, also, we live in this era of, you can tell people grew up without the saying "sticks and stones may break my bones," but words will never hurt me. I mean, they clearly did not grow up in that kind of neighborhood.
Well, I always love the "I'm rubber, you're glue. Anything you say bounces off me and sticks to you."
Well, I think we could definitely apply that to the media with the projecting. But I look at it this way, and Hollywood should really be against limiting free speech, because
Agreed.
when you're not allowed to say or do certain things, it kind of narrows the field of where your brain can go, and it's limiting creativity. I know it's limiting friendships and comedy. I mean, come on, nothing is funny anymore. I mean, all you have to do is look at the ratings of these late night quote unquote comedy shows. Did you see the one with Stephen Colbert? He was talking to Caitlin Collins and said, "Well, yeah, your outlet CNN is never biased," and the people started laughing like it was a joke, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't mean that as a laugh lie, but I guess it is." She
smirked at it as well, like,
I've been caught. You caught me.
They know.
My hand's in the cookie jar.
Right.
But also, when you're having a discussion with someone, it's a good way. Maybe we shouldn't call them debates or interviews, because it can sound hostile and people get all defensive. Just call it a conversation, like Elon and Trump's conversation on X, because then you feel more free to share ideas without it being adversarial, and you can kind of hammer out those ideas and do iron sharpens iron. And when you never hammer anything out, it's just mush.
Right. No, I mean, that's the problem, is that the political discourse in this country has just gotten to this fever pitch, and nobody can just talk to each other anymore. I remember under Ronald Reagan, when you've got compromise going on, and everybody, just about everybody, was a moderate, and now it is
right. I mean, JFK's positions. I mean, I watched this PragerU video with Larry Elder talking about JFK, and I was like, dude, he sounds Republican.
Right. It's crazy. I mean, the Democrat Party today is not JFK's Democrat Party.
No,
I mean,
I don't think he would be that way at all. Maybe that's why. I don't know. You know, I'm not saying one thing or the other, but if I believe it or not, but you can't blame people for having the conspiracy theory that the CIA killed him. Like, well, you know, he didn't exactly toe the line of like LBJ.
Right.
But also, back to limiting free speech. You know, if you limit speech, what's next? Books, music? I mean, come on. How good is music today? So I say no for limiting free speech.
Right. No,
Otherwise, it wouldn't be free speech.
One of my we got a couple historical quotes, but one of my favorite one is from Mark Twain, and he's talking about the press when he said, "Never get in a war of words with somebody who buys ink by the barrel." Right, because they're just gonna keep hammering you, and you know, try and outproduce the amount of words that you can do, and it's what it
say
seems
a whole
like.
lot of something, but not really saying anything. That's how I feel anytime Kamala Harris does speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, and that's why she hasn't spoken. That's why she's not speaking right now, and the media are covering that up for her because you know, she cannot go without her teleprompter and then sound like an intelligent human being.
No, I don't do the word salad. I do the word ball of yarn. It's just twisting and turning and not going anywhere.
Exactly. But also, Ben Franklin said, in those wretched countries where a man cannot call his tongue his own, he can scarce call anything his own. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech without freedom of thought. There can be no such thing as wisdom and no such thing as liberty without freedom of speech, which is the right of every man, and I think you would add every woman as well.
Yeah, but not just the right of some bureaucrat.
Right.
So we have had a couple court cases regarding free speech. In 2016, Mattal versus Tam, the Supreme Court position was that hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment, strikes at the very heart of the First Amendment. Speech that demeans on the basis of race, religion, gender, disability, age, ethnicity, and the sort are indeed, yes, hateful. But the proudest boast of our free speech jurisprudence is that we protect the freedom to express the thought that we hate. In other words, the court ruled that the government cannot ban expression merely because it is offensive.
Right. Now, again, you know, there's so basically, whatever people determine as hate speech is still protected. It's still protected speech. Now, there's obviously speech that endangers life. So yelling fire in a crowded movie theater is not protected speech because that physically endangers the community. But still, we need to get around the fact that anytime people disagree, and this is often the left, the left will throw down the buzzword du jour. What you're saying is hate speech. What you're saying is racist. You're a racist. What you're saying is bigoted. You're a bigot. And
it's
so,
just to shut the conversation down, not to actually prove a point.
It's often because you're losing. You're losing the debate. And you are needing to throw a penalty flag
it's like a 5-year-old starting to scream at you, like they have no legitimate point. It's just I don't like it. Nah.
Right. I mean, it's almost like the Batman movie where Christian Bale's Batman is fighting Bane, and they're in the sewer, and he throws down the smoke bomb to disappear, and Bane says, "Do you think darkness is your ally?" I mean, so you know, it's just I'm losing. I got to throw a smoke bomb down, and we see through the smoke. We see through the smoke, and really, it's because your arguments are not valid, and so you're just going ahead and start calling people names.
Yeah. Well, there was also another Supreme Court case regarding free speech. As recently as June 2024, Murphy versus Missouri, the plaintiffs have sought an injunction to restrict the administration's ability to coerce social media companies like Facebook and X to take down certain posts, arguing the Biden administration used its vast regulatory authority to trample on the First Amendment when it requested the removal of material about COVID-19 vaccines and other topics.
Yeah, for that, specifically, also it talked about how the Biden administration was, having the FBI write letters to Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg to tamp down the Hunter Biden laptop story and say that this was, misinformation from Russia, and that it was a campaign in order to influence the election. And obviously, 32 former intelligence agencies, Clapper and Brennan being the two main idiots for being such supposed smart guys. These guys are idiots, and they signed that open letter saying that this was a classic Russian misinformation, disinformation campaign about the Hunter Biden laptop story. And it turns out all of them were wrong, and it wasn't a legitimate story, and it was Hunter Biden's laptop, and he was doing cocaine, and he was having sex with porn stars and stuff like that, and he's full of debauchery. And so, but this was, the administration was deliberately having Facebook tamp down, like you said, what they considered to be misinformation or disinformation, and some of it was legitimate.
Yeah, so they hid the truth from the American public. So, yeah, I don't believe in suppressing speech or coercing speech either. So another, we could do an hour-long podcast just on our favorite quotes about freedom of speech, but here's another Elon Musk favorite. Freedom of speech is the bedrock of democracy. If the truth is suppressed, it is impossible to make informed voting decisions, as we just talked about with the laptop story, because there are voters out there that said if they had known, they would have voted differently. And to wrap it up, George Washington himself said, if freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter.
Wow. That one is powerful, and it's amazing how our founding fathers had the foresight to talk about things like this, and for us to value and enshrine in our Constitution the Bill of Rights, in order to make sure that free speech is something that we all get to share, but it has to be maintained. It has to be maintained. It's a fire that's on kindling, and it can
once
spread
it's
democracy.
Taken away,
once
we
it
don't
goes
get
out,
it back.
it's out. And so, or at least it's very, very difficult. But please like and subscribe this video. Again, we're a small channel, and every little bit helps. It costs you nothing, and it really helps us out in huge dividends. So thank you so much for watching Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
We got in on the conversation with Elon Musk and Donald Trump the other day, and it was really cool to see our icon next to the Donald Trump icon and the Elon Musk icon for Azimuth Podcast. So we thought that was really cool. Obviously, we were going to live stream it, but we chose not to, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah, 40 minutes of delay. I mean, you guys are busy, so we're glad we didn't do that.
Exactly. So anyway, it's going to start, and Elon Musk is going to give an explanation of why it started late and why it's so important to have a conversation. And we can't wait to share this with you.
All right, hello everyone. My apologies for the late start. We unfortunately had a massive distributed denial of service attack against our servers. and saturated all of our data lines, like basically hundreds of gigabits of
Because
data
people were trying to shut
saturated.
down free speech.
We think we've overcome most of that, and so it's now time to proceed. But as this massive attack illustrates, there's a lot of opposition to people just hearing what President Trump has to say, and but I'm honored to have this conversation. I want to emphasize it's a conversation, and it's really intended to just get a feel for what Donald Trump is just like in a conversation. It's hard to catch a vibe about someone if you just don't hear them talk in a normal way. And when there's an adversarial interview, like no one's themselves in an adversarial interview. And this is really aimed at kind of open-minded, independent voters who just trying to make up their mind. So you can understand, like, what is what is it just like to have a conversation? So, honored to Donald. Great to speak. We had a great conversation yesterday. As you mentioned yesterday, if we could just record that conversation and post it would have been excellent. And I hope we can have something like that today.
Well, I think we will. I'm pretty sure we will. And congratulations, because I see you broke every record in the book.
Yeah, so we're gonna pause this. The conversation was more than 2 hours long, not including the 40-minute wait with the music and things like that. But still, we got some what we felt was important takeaways, and there was some humor. There was, definitely, it was a relaxed atmosphere because, just like Elon said, most of the time in a sit-down interview, it's adversarial. If you've seen any of the J.D. Vance news interviews that he has been giving with ABC, NBC, places like that, it has been very adversarial. But the thing is Senator Vance is powering through it. He's doing a good job. He's getting his message out there, and but still, this is designed not to be that way.
Yeah, I think it's one of many ways in which you could more humanize Trump a little bit.
Sure.
So hopefully the independent voters that Elon Musk is addressing, that he mentioned, we'll see it that way.
Yeah, and throughout this, he wants to have Kamala on as well. Elon does.
Yes.
And so, she hasn't. I think we're at 20. Is it 23 or 24 days?
Yesterday was 24.
Okay, so today is
25.
25.
Yes.
And we're August 14th right now, 2024, and so 25 days that she has just done her basement strategy. Now she learned from the best.
Basement Joe.
Yeah,
but there was the guise of it's COVID, it's not safe for him to come out, blah blah blah. Okay,
right.
Well, you don't have that anymore. I want to mention that Kamala Harris and Walz are not addressing the media yet. The media is running cover. If I were a journalist, and even in private, can't they be frustrated? Like, I am basically selling my soul for you,
right.
Not really telling people the truth. I'm towing the line. I'm using the same script as all the other media outlets. It's like the time we went and shopped for the Prius 10 years ago.
Right.
A salesman was trying to sell us a Chevy Volt and hyping up this sales tax credit, blah blah, and they don't know anything about tax credits, but they're taking advantage of the fact that most people don't really know about them. Well, guess what? You already bought the car by the time you realize that it didn't apply to you. And what happens is that the owner or the manager of the dealership gets all the good old boy club, the salespeople, and tell them what script to say.
Right.
And that's kind of the same feeling I get with the media. So you're not being creative like you want to be. You're not telling the story how you think it should be told. You're using the exact same language as all the other media outlets. You're selling your soul and ruining the whole reason why you went to journalism, because of your curiosity and wanting to get the story out there. and they won't even take the time to talk to you. That would be insulting to me.
Yeah, you can tell that no, maybe not some of the prime time people because they're happy in their contracts and getting paid
$20 million a year.
Money.
A lot of people will sell their souls out.
But some of the daytime anchors, CNN had an anchor, and I'll be honest, I don't know the gentleman's name, but he had a campaign surrogate for the Harris-Walz campaign on. She was a campaign staffer, obviously in public relations. And he said, why isn't Kamala Harris doing an interview? And her response, it was a canned response, and it's because she's taking her message directly to the American public. And he said, well, but what did she have on her schedule today? Well, tomorrow she is going to somewhere, and she's going to take her message to the American public. And the anchors, what did she do today? What did she do?
Good for him.
What did she do today? Why didn't she sit down on an interview today? Well, but she's taking her message straight to the American people, and you could tell that he just kept asking the question again and again. But if she didn't have anything today, she had time today to talk to us, and you could tell that the campaign surrogate spokesperson was really starting to get upset because she just literally was a repeating robot. With the reason that she's not talking to the media is she's talking directly to the American public.
What's on the vice president's schedule today?
Well, she's traveling and talking to voters and getting her message out there to the American people, something that she's been doing from the very start of this campaign and something that she certainly did when she was President Biden's running mate as vice president. But look, you just mentioned the speech she's going to be giving in
that's right. I was asking about today, and I don't think she's got any campaign events on the schedule today, does she? I think we all do, and I'll ask you more about that in just a second. The reason I was asking about today is because it seems like she has time, if she wanted, to do an interview with a member of the media or do a news conference, correct? There does appear to be that time if she wanted.
But let's be clear. It is the exact same speech read off of a teleprompter.
Every single time. And, J.D. Vance and Trump, they're doing interviews and campaigning.
Exactly.
It both can be done. And if you go to their site, there are policies out there. If you want to get your message out to the American public, you're going to have your policies on your website because that's going to be the first place people go to do their research.
And how much is on Kamala Walz's website?
0 policies.
0. It's donate here and how to volunteer. There is 0 policies of what they're going to do. And that should scare every single voter. First of all,
yes.
I think Kamala is an illegitimate presidential candidate because for 2 presidential election cycles now, she has not secured a single primary vote as a candidate for the office that she is currently running in. The 2020 election, she had dropped out before the Iowa caucus, and so she wasn't a candidate when the primaries even happened. So 0 votes there, and then 0 votes here. Nobody has voted for her at all, and so I'm just sad about that.
Well, they don't need to do interviews because the media is running coverage for them.
Exactly.
But we Republicans need to take Nikki Haley's advice that she gave. We need to, say it once, be done. Don't whine about it. It is what it is. Focus on policy.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And so that goes into some of the subjects that Donald Trump and Elon Musk talked about, and it was wide ranging. They talked about his attempted assassination. They talk about immigration. They talk about education. They talk about Elon saying that a commission regarding government spending should be established, and he'd be happy to help with that. And so anyway, because of all the subjects that they talked about, and it was 2 hours long, we've kind of cherry picked some of them, and so we're going to play clips, but. And then we'll sit down and talk about them. But one of the funny things, I didn't put it in here because it was it went kind of rambly, but still, when they were talking about the assassination attempt, Elon asked Donald Trump, so what were you about to say about immigration before you were so rudely interrupted? and he said, obviously, the shooter didn't have any manners and had interrupted him. What did you have to say? And so Trump goes on to talk about his chart that he loves and that he's definitely, he said he sleeps with it every night now after the assassination attempt. But I thought that was pretty humorous, but we cherry picked some other ones, and so we'll go ahead and listen to some of these, and then we'll stop and then talk about it. But these do go in chronological order.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I should probably say something about maybe my views on climate change and oil and gas, because I think it's probably different from what most people would assume. Because my views are actually pretty, I think, moderate in this regard, which is that I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry and the people that have worked very hard in those industries to provide the necessary energy to support the economy. And if we were to stop using oil and gas right now, we would all be starving and the economy would collapse. So it's, I don't think it's right to sort of vilify the oil and gas industry. The world has a certain demand for oil and gas, and it's probably better if the United States provides that than some other countries.
He is absolutely correct, because we do things in a much cleaner, more efficient manner than in China. So if we don't do it here, well, guess what? We have to get it somewhere. I'd rather do it here and have jobs here. Yeah. So I like his balanced approach.
Yeah, I mean, so here's a man that I would say the vast majority of his wealth is in Tesla, and so when you look at, he's the wealthiest man in the world, the vast majority of that is in Tesla, and Tesla is an electric car company. For those of you who don't know, they also do solar panels on roofs and do energy storage, things like that. But still, it is using electricity to power those vehicles and to store and solar and renewable energy. So obviously he is betting with his vast fortune that is going to be successful, and it's wildly successful, obviously. But still, he is a realist. Mm-hmm. He is a realist, and that's this kind of the way I am. You have those optimists and pessimists. So you have the optimist where the glass is half full. The pessimist is it's half empty. Well, I'm like Elon. I'm a realist. There's a glass and there's water in it. I mean, that's straight up what I believe. And for him to say, look, I'm an electric car company guy, but we have to have oil and gas. We have to have oil and gas.
Well, we need as much electricity as possible, no matter what the source is, I think, is what his approach is. And it's absolutely correct, especially with the advent of AI. It requires a lot of energy. We're going to need as much of it as possible. Yeah. I mean, for this to be part of the conversation and to have, loud voices, in the left, and in the radicals as well that are screaming that we have to stop drilling now. We have to flip the switch now. And, he's right. People would starve to death. Yes. Farmers run on gasoline tractors in order to get food. Trucks run on fuel to ship it around the world. Container ships run on fuel in order to do maritime shipping. The world would starve. Yes, and your iPhones have to come from somewhere. But he mentions, we would starve to death, the world would starve. Right. And then further throughout the conversation, he mentions human flourishing. Does that sound like the language of someone who is, quote unquote, a rich person not interested in the middle class, which is a criticism from the left? Like, no, it sounds like he's very much concerned about human flourishing and the middle class. Right. I mean, he talked about how he stood in line 6 hours to vote for Obama in his elections, and he's not a right wing person. I mean, there's the famous meme that he put up that he was center left, and
the left keeps pushing the boundaries of what liberalism is.
Well, the progressives are going to progress.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden he's a centrist, and now all of a sudden he's leaning right, but his positions haven't changed. The political spectrum has changed around him, yep. And so that's what he said. So, but he's going to talk about rewriting history next, and what the Kamala Harris campaign is doing.
That meant, I said, wow, that means that they actually do want to have open borders. She wants to have open borders, and now she's going like she's tough on the border. It's such a lie.
Yeah, this is simply not true. This is simply not true.
And everybody knows
it's
not true. It's a disgrace that she can say it.
No, I mean, obviously what's happening sort of overnight is they're rewriting history and making Kamala sound like a moderate when in fact she is far left, like far left.
Worse than Bernie Sanders. She is considered more liberal by far than Bernie Sanders. She's a radical left lunatic. And if she's going to be our president, very quickly, you're not going to have a country anymore. And she'll go back to all of the things that she believes in. She believes in defunding the police. She believes in no fracking, zero. Now all of a sudden she's saying, no, I really want to see.
So I would reference, if you're trying to look up Kamala Harris, I would reference her 2020 campaign platform to see what she really believes. And it's perfectly in line with what has been going on in the Biden-Harris administration. So, she's just saying right now what people want to hear, what she thinks they want to hear. And, it's true. It sounds like she's trying to rewrite history. They're going through websites and scrubbing them and changing, the rank Walt said that he was. I mean, it's just very reminiscent of the Google Gemini launch.
So you have GovTrack, which is the nonpartisan tracker for politicians, and they rated her the most liberal senator in the United States government, and that has been sanitized. GovTrack has taken that down and sanitize it. So they're supposed to be nonpartisan. Well, why didn't they just leave that up? Obviously, they're in on the gig, and they don't want her to be known as that. But there are clips. In fact, our last week we showed clips where CBS was saying that she was the most liberal senator, and she said, "Oh, no, well, people say that. I think it was Mike Pence said that during the debate," and she said, "No, actually, GovTrack rates you."
And people, when you're doing research, God invented screenshots for a reason.
Right. Yeah, I would challenge everybody to make sure that you are going back and looking at archives of websites before they're changed. They do have archives, and Tim Walz's congressional archived website says that he is a retired command sergeant major. That is not true. The Kamala Harris website said he was a command sergeant major. Still not true. You need to take a look at our previous segment, but they've changed it now, and they, instead of saying retired command sergeant major, they say he achieved the rank of sergeant major, which is true. However, he was demoted to a master sergeant in his retirement, and so it's just the internet is being sanitized, and it's not in your favor for that to happen because Kamala Harris is not doing interviews like we talked about.
Hiding the truth.
She's hiding the truth, and she has those canned teleprompter speeches. But they're really this is really a big problem. But let's keep going to the next segment.
And by the way, if people didn't think that, the lunatics that really believe in that, they won't vote for her. Like the Palestinians and Israel. She is so anti-Israel, and she's bad for both. Biden actually did something that was impossible. Both sides hate him, both sides. That was a hard thing to do, unification.
Yeah, no. I mean, Netanyahu came to give a talk to a joint Senate and House sitting, and I was there, and Kamala stood him up. What does that say?
I think it's highly disrespectful. And I say, if you're a Jewish person or if you believe in Israel, if you're a person that, is a very pro-Israel, if you vote for her, It's worse than Biden, and Biden was bad. But if you vote for her, you ought to have your head examined.
Well, yeah, I mean, goodness. If someone comes to the floor and John Fetterman dresses in a suit and you don't show up,
as the president of the Senate, being the vice president, you have a chair.
Yes, exactly. I'm sorry, but she's trying to get the job of the presidency, and we are doing the interview, and we know she didn't show up to a major event in her last job. That doesn't speak well to me.
Yeah, that's obviously a problem. I mean, we already in our last segment touched on when she was a senator, she missed almost a third of her votes.
More than 30%.
Yeah, so
she didn't do her job 30% of the time.
And taxpayers are paying her. Yes,
exactly. Now, one thing I do want to comment on Trump, we're the base, right? Like, right. Okay, we're in the Coliseum. He's throwing the base meat. We love it. Okay, yes, we do. Okay, but the base is going to vote for him no matter what. But, and Elon said at the beginning, this is for the independent voters who have right. not yet made up their mind. So I think Trump really should have kept that in mind. It can be argued you need to get your head examined. Yes, if you're pro-Israel and yet you're thinking of voting for her, but he needs to not say it. Okay? Yes, I can understand why he would say it, but he needs to not say it because you need to appeal to some of those independent voters and to avoid saying things like that. It's not compromising on your policy by any means. It's just like, look, we need to win. Okay? You need to win, and people can be emotional, and if people have been voting a certain way for decades of their life or have been thinking a certain way for so long, they're almost married to it.
Right.
Because I just can't tell you how many people I'll listen to talk on podcasts, and they sound so rational, but then they're going to vote in a certain way that acts so counterintuitive to everything that their rationale has said. Like, Alan Dershowitz is very pro-Israel and says so many things like, yeah, that sounds so in line with how Republicans are thinking, but then it just stops right there. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
You got to go across the finish line.
Yes, but I think things like this are turning people like him off.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, I think...
Focus on the policies, as Nikki Haley says. Focus on the policy.
If Trump, Vance campaign, focused on just Kamala Harris and Biden's policies and the poor execution of their administration and kept it at that, he has to win because it has been an absolute disaster. Kamala Harris has made her bed, and now she has to sleep in it and lie in it. And
it's like she's trying to make her bed while she's lying in it.
Yeah, but it's too late. The record is already there, and so that's what he needs to do. And if anybody the Trump campaign is watching this, which I hope you are, because we put out great nuggets of regular mom and dad, what we're thinking. Focus on the policy. She has been a disaster, and use her own lack of accomplishments against her.
Yeah, just the facts. Leave she's a disaster, get your head examined. Leave that to the podcasters. You have enough podcasters in your camp that can throw that, but you need to just
now let's talk about her VP pick, or they talk about some of the things that Governor Walz did, as the governor.
We have no leadership. There's no respect for the United States of America with these people, and I'm telling you, she'll be worse than him. Because she's a believer in being radical left, and he wasn't.
I think you're right. I mean, it's important for the public that may be listening to this to look at Kamala's track record, before the last month, and say, is that a track record you agree with? And I think if you're an independent moderate, you definitely would not agree with it, because it is her behavior has been far left. And we're seeing just an overnight propaganda when she, in fact, is not moderate.
Well, her
I think
running mate approved, signed into legislation, tampons in boys' bathrooms. Okay, now
Yeah,
that's all
that's
I have
weird.
to hear. Tampons in boys' bathrooms, and that means she believes in that too. I mean, she
that's not
picked
okay.
this guy because he was the closest to her. A lot of people thought she'd pick sort of the opposite, but she picked an anti-Israel radical left person. But she is far worse, they say, than Bernie Sanders. If we have her as a president, if we have a Democrat at this moment as the president, I don't think our country can survive.
Yeah, I do think he's right on that. But,
Yeah.
he's obviously, he is doing a good job here of talking about, a policy of putting tampons in the
and he
boys'
said
bathroom.
he could have ended it there because again, people's attention spans are very short. But he ordered tampons in boys' bathroom. That's all I need to hear,
Right.
and I think that would perfectly encapsulate the sentiment for everyone. And I think maybe that may have been aimed towards Elon personally, like to get him excited because Elon Musk has a son whose mind was eaten by the woke mind virus in
Right.
his words. So he personally feels, he feels that personally,
pain,
like the
yeah.
ridiculousness and the pain that comes with that.
Yeah, and obviously that's traumatic for any father to experience because the way he understands it was during COVID he didn't realize what he was signing, that this was going to completely change the gender of his child, and he says now I don't have a son anymore because first of all the individual has changed their gender but also disowned their own.
And
I
think that. For some people, that might be an even bigger issue
Right.
because there's this intersectionality when you buy into, okay, I'm no longer a boy, I'm a girl. You believe all these other things
Right.
that go counterintuitive to the values that a normal person would raise their kids with.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just very divisive.
Well, I mean, and let's talk about freedom of speech as well. They're about to talk about freedom of speech and how it seems like it's inappropriately applied.
Yeah, well, I think it's obvious that you're a believer and an advocate of free speech because during your first term as president, you were attacked relentlessly every day, often very unfairly with false attacks, and you didn't try to shut down the media. You didn't try to inhibit their freedom of speech, and I think that says a lot.
Well, the good thing is that you and I have, and some people, very few, we can get the word out. Although sometimes it's hard because they don't want to print it, like we're having a great conversation right now. Kamala wouldn't have this conversation. She can't because she's not smart. She's not a smart person, by the way.
He couldn't help
She
it.
can't have this conversation. And Biden, we don't even have to talk about it. I mean, he couldn't have this conversation. He would have given up on the first half of a question. He would have walked out. He would have said, "Where am I? Where am I going?" So anyway, but no, he wouldn't have this.
That's true.
Not a lot of people would have this conversation, but we cover a lot of territory. But the beauty is that we can have a conversation, and I'm able to get it out without because I get treated unfairly.
This is a really big point. You can actually have a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
And you can't have a conversation with Biden or Kamala. It's like it's not possible. So this is like talking to an NPC.
No.
So it's just impossible.
Well, but think of it. We need a man or person who's unbelievably sharp in order to stop all the nuclear danger and all the dangers that I'm talking about.
So, Elon Musk made a very good point, about being able to talk with him, whereas, you can't talk to Biden or Harris or Walz. And again, if someone's applying for a job and you're the potential employer, but the candidate doesn't really seem to want to talk to you, are you likely to hire them? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Now, he could have left out, again, we're the base. We like the meat. He's
Right.
throwing the meat out like Biden's going, well, where I'm going. He can't do this interview. Kamala Harris is dumb. Okay, yes, all those things are true. But you're trying to appeal to the independent voter
and the moderates.
So he could have left that part out. But when people like to feel like they have some accessibility to their president, like they know what they're thinking. You don't want to feel like your leader is off in the shadows making some dirty deal or anything. Like Thomas Jefferson was really beloved. One of the reasons back in the day is because you could go up to the White House and knock on the door. That used to be true for a lot of presidents, but he was very casual. Like he showed up, he might answer the door in his bedroom slippers or something. And so people like that.
Right. Well, and that's that's one of the things I think why some people that were lifelong Democrats have jumped over to Donald Trump, because they do see him as more approachable and things like that. I mean, he is, the media brands him as anti-middle class, and that's just not true. I mean, it's just not true. He's created jobs all across the spectrum. Biden is just getting back to what the jobs that were lost during COVID, and he's not creating new jobs. But still, they go on into the conversation, and they want to talk about excitement and energized for the future of America. So let's take a listen.
Yeah, well, maybe I think part of what people in America want to feel excited and inspired about the future. They want to feel like the future is going to be better than the past, and that America is going to do things that are greater than we've done in the past, reach new heights that make you proud to be an American, and excited about the future.
They want the American dream back. They want the American dream back. More important than anything else, it's like you don't have that today, because the people, they've been just sucked. They see incompetent people running our. The Biden thing is very interesting. People just found him to be incompetent, and when I debated him, I was like, "Is this for real?" It was.
Yeah, it was just absurd. But I think there are some grand projects that we could do. I mean, I think we could build a base on the moon. We could send American astronauts to Mars. We could build high-speed connections that are more advanced than anything else in the world between our cities, so people have fast transport. It's possible to solve traffic with tunnels. We've already made great progress in Vegas doing that, and and just do things that are exciting and inspiring and make the future feel like it's better than the past.
I hope Trump really takes Elon's advice to heart, because they were talking about the Harris campaign and hinting at why it's increasing her poll numbers. I mean, because talking about how much something sucks is not entirely motivating.
Right.
Whereas you have Beyonce playing and people are dancing, and the whole media is going, joy, blah 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 blah. I mean, again, toeing the line,
fawning over her.
Yes, and talking, she's a beautiful woman, and it gets a little old, but it is a little more energizing. And so Elon's like, hey, hope is energizing. And so maybe what Trump needs to do is, okay, we achieved greatness in 2019. We're all better off, right? Well, we can go even further. We can do, the inspirational projects that Elon Musk laid out there. And this is how I can get us there.
Right.
I think that's kind of what Elon Musk is, like the game plan for Trump that Elon Musk is laying out.
Yeah,
for him.
that's one of the things. Trump doesn't really get a lot of credit for this, but Trump had a meeting of multiple influential CEOs hosted at the White House. Meta was there, IBM was there, I believe Tesla was there. But really had all of these high-powered CEOs that were there in order to talk about how we could build giant things again. and how we could have these moonshots of medicine and innovation and technology and progress of moving into outer space and becoming a multi-planetary species. And so, Trump didn't get a lot of credit for that, and he wants to build things, and Elon clearly he does build things, and he's volunteered to his time, which is extremely valuable, to do some of that stuff. So, they go in to talk about the active process of reducing rules and regulations. I think Donald Trump said that for every regulation that comes under his administration, they have to get rid of 10.
Which is smart because, again, you're limiting and narrowing things down. And then things like Elon Musk said, that things just ossify and you can't get anything done.
Yeah, so let's hear about their talk about reducing regulations.
The FDA takes too long. It's 12 years to get a product approved. I got it down to 4, and I got some things done very quickly. But it's really something that is going to have to be worked on because it takes too long. Just takes too long.
Yeah, it just takes too long, and it's you end up in the same with the approval, but it just it takes years instead of something that I think could potentially take months, and that improves people's lives.
Yeah.
And I think I just wanted to harp on this point that there has to be an active process for reducing rules and regulations, because otherwise they just keep building up every year, and you get hardening of the arteries, and eventually everything's illegal or takes forever, and then we just ossify as a society. We can't make any progress, and it's a really big deal.
One of the things that they continue on to say, again, because this is so. This conversation is so long, we wanted to make sure that we were able to truncate some of it down. But one of the things he talked about was his right to try, and that was for experimental medications for people who had terminal illnesses. And look, let me be the guinea. I'm dying anyway. Let me be the guinea pig for this particular drug. And he's had thousands of success stories with some of these experimental drugs, and they've actually saved people's lives. And so that was one of the things that he was talking about, rules and regulations with the FDA specifically. But Elon's absolutely right. Now, they move on to talk about crime. And, the interesting thing is, depending upon who you talk to, crime is either up or down. I would say, it's the old Mark Twain quote, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, because you can use statistics anywhere you want. But for the left, for people to say crime is going down, I would say that crime is no longer being reported.
Yes, and Elon Musk touches on that too.
Yep.
You're better off when I was president. Nobody's better off now. People, we put out polls on that, and nobody's better off now. Inflation has killed it. And, they also feel very unsafe. You look at what's going on with a lot of different things. You look at the riots we had at the colleges it's ridiculous, but all of the riots, they just feel unsafe. And now they really feel unsafe because you have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. Maybe I'll call it Kamala migrant crime. But
with all these things, I always try to get to the ground truth by just asking people. And my mom lives in New York, and I was like, Mom, have any of your friends been attacked or assaulted? And she said, yeah, 3 of her friends in 3 separate incidents were assaulted just in recent months, just walking around the streets of New York. And I said, well, what happened to the people that assaulted them? Oh, nothing. They got away. They just know
they always get away.
Nothing's going. And they don't even bother reporting it because they know that they're not going to, people are not going to get prosecuted. They just let, violent criminals out in New York.
The only one that gets prosecuted is Donald Trump. They prosecute Trump.
Yeah, it's just obviously messed up.
Yeah, so here we go. Again, if you don't report the crime and you don't include it in a statistic, then you can't say that the crime is going down. You're just not talking about the crime that actually happened.
Well, it's like being on a diet and not, you're supposed to write down your calories, like everything you ate, and you're like, okay, well, you forget to write down a cupcake or something, so you wonder why you're gaining weight. Like your eyes see the crime going up around you, your eyes see the weight going up around you, but this statistic says that should not be the case.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this was just such an interesting conversation, and really what was especially telling was Elon Musk got an official letter from the European Union talking about how if this talk or conversation was insightful in any way, it could result in charges being in the EU. And so, if whatever he or Donald Trump say is misinformation or insightful or whatever, that they'd be in violation of communication laws in the EU. And I'll be honest, Elon Musk's response was classic. He used a meme from the movie Tropic Thunder. The character played by Tom Cruise is this media mogul, and the meme says, "How about you take a step back and fuck your own face?" was his response to the European Union, and that's one of the reasons why he was so deliberate and using precise words precisely at the beginning, that this is not an interview. This is not a debate. This was not a campaign stump speech. This was a conversation between two individuals. It just happened to be on X Spaces, and so it was important to see. I mean, you could see that it wasn't just Elon Musk asking question after question. It was Elon Musk also giving his opinion of what
good opinions,
good opinions, and Donald Trump would have to react to his opinion, and the same thing. I mean, there were some surprising things, for Elon to talk about how he is pro oil and gas and coal and for energy right now. He says, look, you can't just turn it off. That'd just be stupid. We'd all die. We'd all starve to death. And talking about misinformation. And I think that was one of the most critical things that he has absolutely done, was to privatize and purchase Twitter, now known as X, to have that town square and to be in the middle for everybody to post things.
Well, we had a good time with that,
Yep.
and thank you for joining us. And
and we're going to we'll put a link to the full, so you don't have to hear us talk. You can have the full link. We'll put it in the description as well.
All right. Well, hit like and subscribe, and have a good day. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.